welcome to the First Show, the show that comes your way every Monday to Friday. Today is the Thursday, meaning we only have one more day to come to the end of the First Show, and then we'll be back on Monday. However, that's not all from STV. We also have a session that comes your way every weekend with very interesting programs. So for you who wants to be part of the First Show, don't forget that this is the time for you to participate and give us your views and tell us what you think, because we only have one more day to come to the end of the First Show. I'm excited to be here today in the morning like always, and I'm excited that all of you are here with us on the First Show. Now remember that I have been dressed by House of Armor located at South Point Mall, KADAGA. I will be reading out the numbers a little bit later for you who wants to go out there and be able to look as good as I'm looking. Unfortunately, I can't stand up for you to look at the full dress, but my pages, that is Facebook, Latifa Hamid 23, Instagram, Latifa Hamid 3, and Twitter, Latifa Hamid 3, will be having this particular dress full, where Vicente will be taking my pictures. Now, whenever you see my pictures on screen, know that Vicente is taking those pictures, and we will definitely be uploading them for you to see the full hijab. And if you want one, the price and the number will be there for you to get yourself one and look as good as I am during this holy month over Ramadan. The days are running, and this seems to be the 11th day of Ramadan for us who are counting. Maybe I'm counting too fast, maybe I'm counting too slow. It depends on how many you've missed and how many you have fasted. Well, we start the show off with a number of issues for you who this is the first time for you to watch the First Show. We have 1, what happens out there, the updates, and then 2, the stories in details, and then later on we also have the tweets that caught our attention as we are scrolling through Twitter, and then we have what we call global exploration before we go into the lifestyle segment. But don't forget what we call the topic of discussion or topic of the day, where we're discussing a number of issues that come with your participation in understanding those issues and telling us what are the solutions to the problems that we're discussing. Now, yesterday we had a guest who was talking about Islamic banking and helping us understand the concept of Islamic banking. Now, what Dr. Ahmed Moses made us understand was that the concept of Islamic banking is not too different from any other type of bank, but the only difference is that Islamic banking comes with no interest or low interest loans, or it comes with a loss and sharing part between the banker and the person who is taking the loan. And he says Kenya and Tanzania have already instated Islamic banking, and the other types of banking are coexisting with Islamic banking, and he hopes that Islamic banking will be coming into the country sooner or later. And he says that kind of banking actually promotes economic growth rather than kill the economic situation of a country, where the COVID-19 situation and a number of people are going through times of crisis, especially with their businesses. We had an interview with one of the biggest moguls, business moguls in town, and they explained how they're being affected by the usual rent arrears that the people who stay in their buildings are failing to pay. And of course, they cannot tell them, get out of our shops. I mean, what is the use of chasing one client who is owing you 5 months of rent, or even 1 year of rent, because people haven't been working for a very long time, and then bringing in someone who will also not be able to pay the rent and put you at a situation where you also have to wait another 4 to 5 months before they pay your rent. So he says that patience is the key, and I told you that yesterday. Patience is not only the key to success, in the fact that in my life I need to be patient, but even in business. You need to be patient in order to get what you need to get. I told you, I learned a few lessons here and there about patience, and I think I'm learning how to be a little bit patient with my body, a little bit patient with my brain, a little bit patient with my time. When my brain does not feel like thinking, I give it a thinking holiday. I tell it, sit aside, and it's okay. Let yourself breathe, let yourself get away from active thinking and just think about the most stupid things. Sing your nursery rhymes if that will help you relax your nerves and relax your brain. If your body doesn't feel like doing anything, sometimes you need to let it be. It's telling you something, it's communicating something. And unless you listen to your body, unless you listen to that third voice, that part that tells you we need to have this, then you're going to be in trouble and your body is going to be in trouble. See, one thing that my body used to communicate to me about was that it didn't want sugar. And I thought maybe I was diabetic, so I went for a checkup and found out that I was actually not diabetic, but that was my body's way of communicating that it had enough sugar at that point. But at a certain point in life, when I actually needed sugar, I'd have cravings for sugary things, and then I'd eat a lot of sugar. So if you pay attention to your body, it actually communicates to you and tells you, this is what I want. Now I want you this morning to look at yourself in the mirror and then tell yourself the affirmations that you want in life. I am beautiful. I am worthy. I am rich. And keep telling yourself those things every other time, because trust me, it manifests truth. Your thoughts manifest truth, and this is the time for you to do it when the world is more holier than it usually is, and Muslims are paying more attention to their faith and more attention to Islam as a religion than they usually do every other time of the year. The days are running, and that means we have very few days left to this holy month of Ramadan with Mufti Mek, who will be here on the 25th, and that is very, very close. Get ready to buy yourself tickets, and the tickets are very affordable. There's 300,000. There's 100,000, and there's also $400 for those who want to spend the night at the Pearl of Africa. Now, all that information will be coming in during the day. There will be ads that are running, and all the tickets will be at Pearl of Africa. So there are numbers that are running. You can call those numbers, book yourself a ticket, pay, and then just go on that day to take your ticket. Or you can actually go to Pearl of Africa and see where it is that you're going to sit and watch Mufti Mek when he comes in Uganda. Now let's start with the stories that made it to our top headlines today, and they're very interesting stories, ladies and gentlemen. I want to start with a very sad story of a kid that was amputated and killed and cut into pieces by a man who took, the allegations are, the suspicions is that he did it for, you remember last time we were talking about developing nations and the fact that there's sacrifice that people do for wealth in developing nations. And that is because the people who believe in different things. And when, for example, you go to someone who is practicing the African art of witchcraft, it could be any other art, and then they tell you that in order for you to be rich, you need to bring the ears of a 15-year-old, you need to bring the head of a 10-year-old. This is what happened in this instance, unfortunately, and it is a very, very sad situation. Now, the story that came our way is that there is investigations about the fact that there is a child in KIBOGA who has been killed by a Charles Katongole, and who is under suspicion. Now, according to police, the 3-year-old, who is the son to Ronald Kasibanti and Betty Tulina, left home to play with the neighbors, and she never went back home. Now, what happened is the parents went and asked around, where do you think you've seen my son? My son went out to play on this day and we haven't seen him for a very long time. What is happening? Have you seen my son? Now, in investigating and in asking, one of the neighbors indicated that they had seen their son. With some neighbor in the names of Chintu, and he was the one who had left with the son. Now the mother informed the neighbors about Chintu, and they accompanied her to Chintu's house, which is in Dabirizi village, but they didn't find the child. Instead, they found Chintu with blood-stained cloth, and they also found a body part of a lower lip in Chintu's house. Now the police came, there was a sniffer dog that was there and investigating what was happening, and then it led them to a swamp where they found the other body parts of a child. It was taken to postmortem and they found out that it was their child. Now Chintu is the prime suspect in this case, and the police says they're going to examine his mental state. But is this mental state, or is this issues like I've just discussed earlier of the fact that there is still the issue of if you get me a child and sacrifice them, then you will be rich. Remember this man who went to parliament without fear and carried a head of another young child and took it to parliament saying that this head is actually for Rebecca KADAGA. And when they found him with that package and they opened, it was the head of a child, and the investigations led them to find out that he was a shamba boy in that house at that time, where he lured the kid out of that house out there into the open and did what he did. Now they also checked his mental state, and they said that he wasn't okay mentally. Now what kind of punishments should be given to those people? Some religions call for an eye for an eye. Is that what we're meant to do? Should they be given life imprisonment? Because it looks like this practice is now becoming more rampant. People are murdering kids and killing kids because of sacrifice, because of wealth, because they told me to do this if I wanted to be rich. And that happens mostly in developing countries, unfortunately. And we are seeing that the crime rate in Uganda is increasing right now in 2020, even when the police report indicated that the crime report was decreasing by 8.9%, and that in 2019 the crime was actually higher than it is in 2020, than it was in 2020, but the report has not been released for 2021. The report, however, also indicated that there was a rise in domestic violence, and that as well comes as a concept that affects your mental health and also your physical state. We saw this video where this woman was beating up her child as if the child did not belong to her. Now all those things are happening right now in the COVID-19 situation. And that is why when we were sitting right here on screen with some of my colleagues who are along with us right now, we discussed the aspect that Uganda needs to put more money and finance the mental health facility in the country, because COVID-19 is affecting people in different separate ways. People are being affected mentally because of different issues. People have lost their loved ones to COVID-19, while others are struggling financially to survive in this COVID-19 situation. And some people feel like the only way to survive is by robbing people, by killing people, and they feel that that way there will be a bit of relief if that is done. Now something has to be done in enhancing Butabika Hospital, not because people are going crazy and they all need to be admitted to Butabika Hospital, but there is what we call psychology. And in psychology is where people have to meet psychiatrists to speak to someone professional who will help them align their thoughts and get things out of the way in order for them to think clearly. And I think that has to be enhanced in Uganda for everybody, including me and you, to deal with the COVID-19 situation and the issues that are going on in this country. Very sad stat that is, and I feel hurt for the parents of those children, and we're praying that they find healing at this particular time. Now the other story that got our attention, and before I got there, there's a tweet from Rebecca KADAGA that of course got my attention, and she's talking about the death of the Chadian president Idris Deby, who passed away in the front line as he had gone to visit his army, in seeing how they were faring in fighting the militia that was trying to create a coup d'etat against his government. Now that tweet will be coming on our screen very soon. My producer will be putting it out there, and after the Rebecca KADAGA tweet there will be the other tweets that of course got my attention that will be bringing them to you. Now the other tweet is also from the man himself who is coming to Uganda to give Muslims a preaching or a speech during the month of Ramadan, Mufti Menk, and he also had a tweet. I told you Mufti Menk's tweets are quite inspiring, and we'll also have that as one of the tweets that got our attention today. And that's what we usually do on the first show. If the tweets that get our attention, we usually bring them to you and we show them to you. Now, coming back to the Rebecca KADAGA. Now, the Speaker of Parliament, Rebecca KADAGA, has directed the Commission on Human Rights to visit the KITALYA prison to find out the status of the prisoners at the facility and the status of prison itself. Now, remember when a number of people were abducted in Uganda, and those especially from the NUP combat opposition as a large, a number of them said that they were tortured during the process. And some of them who were put in KITALYA prison came out and said that the situation in KITALYA prison is deplorable, and there is no food, there is congestion, and there is a high level of torture of prisoners. Now, Rebecca KADAGA has come out to say investigations have to be done on that matter. And the other person who also commented on that issue, it was raised by MP Zake, who came at a time when Kawempe North Member of Parliament-elect Muhammad Ssegirinya was admitted in hospital after being granted bail from prison, and that was KITALYA prison. Now, as we know, Muhammad Ssegirinya is in Nairobi getting treatment, and they said that he's not doing quite well. Now, there were rumors that came out a few days ago, and we talked about them right here on the first show, saying that Muhammad Ssegirinya had died while receiving treatment in Nairobi. But those were rumors, and we dispelled them as rumors on the first show and the face-to-face, and we explained that such rumors are the ones that bring issues to Ugandans, because, see, someone will come up with information, and then they'll spread it through social media, and then this person will pick it and then send it to the other person, and then this person will send it to the other person. Before we know it, there will already be fire that has been lit, and there will be chaos like that of November 18th. Now, when we look at what Zake told Parliament, he said, "I was finally granted access after a long time of being stopped from accessing the facility. I found many people experiencing abdominal pains. They're poorly fed on half-cooked posho, and the hygiene is also a disaster." And that is what Zake said as he was in Parliament explaining the fact that there was a problem. Now, Rebecca KADAGA, who was of course chairing the session, ordered the Human Rights Committee in Parliament to investigate the matter and come up with a report. She says, "We want a report as soon as possible. I hereby direct the Human Rights Committee to investigate the matter and the allegations that are coming out of KITALYA prison and about what is happening there with the torturous conditions that majority have been facing, and there are also allegations that the prisoners in KITALYA are being denied medical access." Now, we've seen a number of people who have come out of KITALYA prison, and they have the same concern. The last time that Baine was asked about this information, he says it is a lie, and KITALYA is one of the prison facilities that is up to date and it is fair in dealing with prisoners. And he also said that this is only propaganda from the opposition who are against the government, the sitting government, and who are of course bitter because some of their supporters are in prison as we speak. 49 members of NUP are still in court-martial right here in Machinde, and they're being charged for holding rounds of ammunition, AK-47 guns, and being responsible for creating the November 18th riots that killed over 54 people. They are also charged with being in plans to riot during the swearing-in of President Yoweri Museveni that will be taking place on May 12th. Now, speaking of Yoweri Museveni and his swearing-in, we know that a number of opposition members have said they will not allow Yoweri Museveni to swear in. The picture that you're seeing right now is Ssegirinya Mohammed, who was taken in court at that time when he went to the streets in Kampala Central, and he was rioting and saying that Robert Chagulanyi is the one that is supposed to be the president and not Yoweri Museveni, and he says he will not swear in unless Robert Kyagulanyi is pronounced as the president. And also the recent getaway that the NUP members had in Jinja only stated that at this time that the people in that they will not allow for the NUP supporters to allow that President Museveni is the president.
Nyuma ono yatwalibwa mu kkomera kwa limanda ekitalya gyakulungudde kumpi omwezi mulamba ng'avunaanibwa ogw'okukuma mu bantu omuliro wabula oluvannyuma lwa kkooti Uganda Road okutuula olwokutaano lwa sabbiiti ewedde
results and said that according to the results that he has, it shows that he won as the president and not Yoweri Museveni, who was pronounced with a win of 58%, but he is the president. However, Electoral Commission had pronounced him with a result of 34%, and he says that is not right. Now, in the swearing in of the president that is being disputed by a number of opposition candidates, a total of 15 heads of states have been invited to the inauguration of the president that is going to take place. Now, among the heads of states that have been invited, AKON has also been officially invited by the president to be part of this swearing in and inauguration process. And among them, we have Samia Suluhu, we have the Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta, who will also be part of the procession. Now, the Chadian president, who has just passed away, was also part of that particular list, and now he's not going to be able to make it. We're not sure whether his son will be representing him, his son who took over leadership as soon as his father died. Now, the other heads of states who will be attending Yoweri Museveni's swearing-in ceremony will be Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa. We have Salva Kiir of South Sudan, Paul Kagame, who of course we have been arguing that the relationship between Rwanda and Uganda has not been very good, and there have been, however, negotiations and talks between Rwanda and Uganda in trying to settle down the issues that these two nations are facing. Now, we know that among the people who will be coming for the inauguration of President Yoweri Museveni is the Rwandan President Paul Kagame, and we also know that Rwanda will be hosting the Commonwealth State of Nation that happened in Uganda in 2007. Now, this time around, Rwanda will be hosting it, and of course the biggest part of the discussion will be about environment and climate. And we know that a number of civil society organizations have come up to question Uganda's involvement in ensuring that the oil that we're going to be exporting will have no effect on climate. DRC was one of the countries that came up and said Uganda has to answer to questions of environmental degradation when it comes to oil extractions, and they said they're concerned because the oil that is going to come will be in the border between DRC and Uganda, and that is why it is of concern for them to come out and question the government over environmental degradational issues that they believe will come out if the government does not keenly look at these issues. 44 civil organizations came up to question the government over the fact that they have not truly looked into environmental degradation issues before they launch the oil project. Now, the other people who will be invited is Ssegirinya of DRC, that is Felix, and then we have Teodoro Obiang of Equatorial Guinea, we have Emerson Mnangagwa of Zimbabwe, we have Edgar Lungu of Zambia, and the other heads of state that will be present. And as the list comes out, we at STV will be reading you the list for you to understand on May 12th who will be in the country and who will not. And of course, STV will be bringing you the live coverage of the swearing-in ceremony, and we'll have our reporters in all the corners in the country to bring you information about about the swearing-in ceremony of the president. Now, there were leaflets that were being thrown around in town, and the leaflets were saying, "You will not swear in," and the picture was of President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, and that is why the court-martial, among the reasons that it has given for not giving people bail, the NUP supporters who are in prison, including Nubian Lee and Eddie Mutue bail, is because they say that these people have planned to riot and disorganize the swearing-in ceremony of President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni that is set to happen. Now, we remember that Yoweri Kaguta Museveni had said that, "I know that there are people who are planning to disrupt my swearing in, but I will not allow them to do so, and we will have enough security to ensure that nothing is disorganized on that day." And also, we know that there is accreditation of journalists. Now, in a statement released, they're saying we're in the process of accrediting journalists who will be covering the swearing-in ceremony of the president-elect next month. Now, due to COVID-19 restrictions, invitations will be limited. It will be on a first-come, first-served session, and TV stations wishing to carry the events live must send in their details early enough for proper planning. Now, foreign correspondents should also send in their details starting Monday, 26th April 2021, which is next week, and we shall be updating you on the COVID-19 tests which will be carried out. We know that the president has also reported that the number of people who have taken the COVID-19 vaccine are very few, even after the president himself came out to take the COVID-19 vaccine. But regardless of whether you took the COVID-19 vaccine or not, when a journalist is accredited for going to cover the swearing in, they must be tested a few days to the swearing in, and then they will be going in to ensure that when they go in, they are negative. Now, let's quote the president on opposition members of parliament who are trying to stop the swearing in. The president said the opposition have been planning to stop the swearing in, and they will not stop because the security forces will stop them. They won't stop the swearing in, and we shall make sure that we cut them before they even get there. They plan all the crazy things like, that is according to some statements that the President Museveni has said. They say they plan all crazy things, and I will leave some words out, and claim they are the government. To conspire to do that is a crime, and I advise them to drop it. I'm happy many youths are refusing to follow this criminal plan of their leaders, and you can't disrupt Uganda. Whoever is telling you so is lying, and that is what President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni said. Now, there's a tweet where President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni put on his Twitter account, and of course he was talking about the end of the NRM group that met in Chankwanzi and discussing ideologies of the NRM, and of course that too will be coming to your screen sooner or later. And the state, we call it the getaway of NRM candidates, of the newly elected NRM MPs who went to Chankwanzi, has finally come to an end, and we're waiting to hear from them who is going to be the next Speaker of Parliament. Because as we are planning for the swearing in of the president for his 6th term, we're also waiting to know who the next Speaker of Parliament will be. And that's a story for us that is quite important, and we're waiting to hear what the Central Executive Committee of the NRM has come up with as a name of the person who will be present. Now, Oulanya was part of that particular the getaway that was in Chankwanzi, but Rebecca KADAGA sent her apologies and said that she would not be able to make it to Chankwanzi, and she wasn't able to do so. Now, does that give Oulanya an upper hand? Is the decision that we are waiting to hear from the Central Executive Committee of NRM. Now we'll move forward to the next story, and that is Centenary Bank has lost 3 billion in internal fraud. Now, if you remember the report that was released by police recently on crime and rape and also fraud shows that Uganda has lost a lot of money when it comes to fraud in the country. Now, they say that fraud is the major headache when it comes to banking sectors. Remember, there's a time when between the mobile money agents and also some of the banks, there was a lot of money that was lost in fraud, and it hasn't been recovered to date. Now, according to the report that we received, the banks lost 2.4 billion and only 10 million was recovered. Mr. Twine, while giving the report and fraud, explained that Uganda has lost a lot of money when it comes to fraud, and it's not only happening in banks but also in other places. Now, remember when there's a time that a number of people were arrested, and this time we know that Centenary Bank is the one that is in trouble, and some people were arrested from Centenary Bank when it lost an amount tuning to 152 million Ugandan shillings on an account number that was held in Ssegirinya branch. And the people that were arrested, among them were the branch officer, that was Stephen Ziwa, the branch assistant manager Diana Msisina Mubiru, the branch supervisor Nasir Doka, and other workers who were also arrested in that particular report that was put forward on Centenary Bank. Now, the report also showed that Uganda lost money on property valued at 11.5 trillion in economic crimes, translating to 32 billion stolen every other year. And this crime report was released for last year, and they said that this happened with people stealing money every day. Now, there was an increase of 297 billion lost due to economic crimes in 2019 alone. And aside from that, there's also the issue of cyber crime. Now, Centenary Bank is one of those banks that has had issues for a very long time when it comes to money and the fact that they have lost a huge tune of money from their banks. And now, like I told you earlier, they're investigating Centenary Bank over allegations of stealing 3.5 billion in forex exchange deals. Now, what happened is, according to the explanation that police gave, is that there was a syndicate that has been going on since 2019. And just last year, the syndicate became worse. Now, what was happening was that these bank workers would charge a fee on foreign exchange. Now, say I go with money to exchange, the rates that they show me would be lower. Now, when I exchange that money, the balance of what would remain on the foreign exchange rate is what they would take. And now we're seeing that the bank has lost a tune of over 3.5 billion Ugandan shillings. Now, cybercrime is one of these issues in Uganda that we have failed to deal with, given the little bit of information that we have on technology and internet, unfortunately. And when issues such as this come up, you ask yourself, what next and how can we deal with this as a country? There's a time we were having a conversation about cyberbullying and the fact that there were some celebrities who would report cyberbullying and police would allegedly arrest the people involved in cyberbullying. And they said that the criminal would face up to 2 years in prison for cyberbullying. And cyberbullying was increased during the political situation where a number of opposition candidates and also the incumbents would throw words against each other and accusations against each other on internet. And police tried to control it, but it was uncontrollable because we in Uganda have failed to deal with issues when it comes to crime and cyberbullying on internet. Our view and our knowledge on internet is still very small. And the only way we managed this time around, which was quite surprising, to deal with internet is to shut it down completely. And we had to involve these telecommunication companies in dealing with the problem of internet usage or poor internet usage during the political situation, and that was recently when there were rallies that was happening in Kampala. Now, what happened during that time was, if you're to remember keenly, Facebook came out and blocked accounts. But before that, the UCC had appealed to Facebook and Google and YouTube to shut down some of the accounts of the opposition candidates whom they say are leading to things such as the November 18th chaos. And however, Facebook, Google, and YouTube refused to do that. And instead, they blocked accounts of government officials, leading to MUSEVENI having a comeback and blocking Facebook to Uganda. Until today, Facebook has not come back. Well, those are some of the things that Uganda needs to look at, especially with developments coming into the country such as AKON City and Bitcoins and also AKON. How are we going to deal with the number of fraud that we have in the country, even when it comes to cryptocurrency? Are we ready to deal with that? Do we have a department in police that deals with cyber crime? Is a question that we ought to ask ourselves as we're coming into a time where internet usage is at its highest, and we're waiting to see what exactly police has to say about that, and if they're ready to deal with the issues of cyberbullying, fraud, and all these other issues that are happening in relation to internet and technology. Now, according to a report that was released recently by the World Justice Project Rule of Law, they say that Uganda is the worst country in the East African region in terms of not adhering to justice and the rule of law, the report indicates. However, they say Rwanda is the best in adherence of the rule of law, though globally it is ranked at number 37. It is followed by Tanzania at 93 and Kenya at 102. However, the annual report that was released in Washington paints a picture of the rule of law in 128 countries across the globe, and it provides a score based on 8 factors. 1, the factor includes the government's powers, absence of corruption, open government fundamental rights, order and security, regulatory enforcement, civil justice, and criminal justice. And we see that according to the assessment, Uganda performed very poorly in this index report that has just been received, and they say that the judiciary has not been doing such a good job. Now, other people will say, well, that's expected, because we know that the US has just slapped sanctions on some of the government officials in Uganda, and it is because of the just concluded elections. So this, according to a number of people, is actually expected because they know that this will happen. Now, the president of the East African Law Society, Mr. Bernard Olundu, faulted the report for not including Burundi, South Sudan, before saying that the data is about most countries and it is worrying. Now, he says the data on the rest of the countries is mostly worrying and confirms what we have been observing in Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania: persistent failure to effect real and meaningful changes to existing government systems. The political will to uphold the rule of law remains unsatisfactory. What this means is that we have to intensify our efforts at advocacy for change as a regional bar association. And that is exactly what he says. He, however, says that even when the report says it's complete, there's some countries in Africa that is missing, and you cannot put a certain country at a certain number when you still are not sure how these other countries are faring and you've not included them in the report. Now, ladies and gentlemen, those are the stories that we had for you today in the morning session. And I need to inquire, Husna Feti, are tweets ready for us to go through them one by one and then see which tweets got our attention today? Well, now let's look at the tweets that got our attention today as we were looking at them. The one that we have here by Rebecca KADAGA says, I have received the sad news of the death of His Excellency Idris Deby, the President of Chad, who was killed at the front line. The president has just been re-elected for a 6th term in office, but was unfortunately killed before commencing his new term. Now, this particular tweet from Rebecca KADAGA had a lot of responses from people, and they were not so good responses, so we couldn't bring them to you, but that is a treat. Now let's go to the one from Yoweri Kaguta Museveni that also got our attention, and he says, a successful conclusion to today's events at the NRM leadership retreat in Chankwanzi. The topical discussions on land issues and security were mostly insightful to our MPs-elect. Remember that they took, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni explained that they will be taking in the retreat only the MPs-elect and not the MPs that were there. It created a bit of chaos in NRM, but finally they decided to come down because they didn't have anything to do about that. And he says that we urge them to support us in providing solutions, and that is from President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. And then the one that I told you, from Mufti Menk, which comes as an inspiration for you today, says, you are on the verge of giving up because you can't stand the pain. You're wondering if the Almighty is aware of what you're going through. Never doubt He's all-knowing, all-seeing, and remember, you might be experiencing tremendous pain, but the results will be beautiful. And we've discussed this before on the first show as well. Even when you're going through a trying time, gold goes through fire before it is refined. And Mufti Menk has the same message for you this morning, and he says, trust the Almighty, and that is information that he has. And then we have another one from Ofono Opondo, and Ofono Opondo says, with Honorable Muriku Joyce, State Minister, Primary Health Care and Ministry of Health, after her presser to waterborne diseases. It is raining in Uganda, and there's a statement that was released by the ministry explaining that people have to be extra careful about waterborne diseases, given that there will definitely be floods. And of course, she's celebrating her 52nd birthday, at which gave cake and refreshments at Jono's. May she blow 1,000 candles. And we also saw that happen as well. And I actually saw her tweet that, of course, we didn't pull out, but she was saying she thanks God for her life and celebrates everybody who played a role in where she is today in her life. And finally, we have Daniel Lutaya, who explained that Uganda Cranes has no coach, no captain, no deputy captain, no players, and the players have not been paid yet. And according to him, that is something that we should be concerned about. Now, that were the tweets that we had for you today, and I hope that as you're going through your day, you'll have time to go through your Twitter, because you need to look through what updates are being given to you, and that is one of the platforms for you to get information that is quite important for you to go through the day with yourself. Now, keep posting your tweets, and every day we'll be picking out the tweets that stand out for us, and we'll be bringing it to you on the first show. Now allow me to take a short break and leave you with global exploration as we come back with our guest for today, who will be speaking about the Plan B for bar owners and what else they're looking forward to, with the fact that President Museveni said that, one, he's not going to extend the curfew time, and two, he's not going to open economies such as bars and nightclubs.